Did you know that there's an app out there now? If you're feeling down, something's bothering you, you're really worried, you call in. And within minutes, they're going to match you up with a total stranger, and you're going to get to vent to that total stranger for about 15 minutes. Now, why is that?
Well, that's a pretty interesting app. I read about it, and I read the promo for it. It says free, confidential conversations with a trained listener. A trained listener. And really what that says about society is we don't listen anymore. You know, that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen twice as much as we speak. But we don't.
No, we don't.
Everybody is wanting someone to listen to them and listen attentively. And you're right, we don't oftentimes listen. And a good part of listening, 70% of communication is nonverbal. And so when you're sitting across from someone, you really, if you're showing them you're engaged, that's what they really need. They need to see that you're listening to what they're saying. And if you needed to be able to repeat it back, you could. And actually, you should.
Yeah, but if you've called in, you're not sitting face to face with them.
You're not.
And I think the danger is that they're a trained listener. What if they are they trained counselors? What if the person's contemplating suicide or something wrong? A trained listener doesn't say anything to me. They could be giving me some very wrong advice instead of going to somebody. And I know it's hard for people to reach out for counseling, but however, I don't know that I'm going to call somebody that's just a trained listener versus somebody that's going to really help me walk through my problems step by step.
You know, I think about when you ask that question, you know, are you someone that people can talk to? And I think about, how can I not be? I'm home with 9 people, you know, 7 children.
If your phone rings, are you going to talk to someone for an hour?
Listen, on the phone?
You can't do that with 9. How do you do that, Elisa, with all these kids and all that's going on in your life? How can you take time out and do that?
They've made me professional, you know, because when you're dealing with, with 7 children, you don't deal with just 1 child at a time. You deal with at least 3 of them at a time. So I've become a professional with this.
Multitasker.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Well, you're right. We do need to be there for people, and we need safe people in our lives. We've talked about this before in the fact that we don't need to isolate ourselves. God called us into connection, and we need to connect ourselves with people that we can trust with when we're hurting and when we're down. We all need validation. We all need to be encouraged, but it takes building that team. You've got to have a life team is the bottom line, and it needs to be 3 to 10 people. And it's hard. When I first started this, I'm like, maybe 1 or 2 that I really feel like I could just call and say, you know, I'm having a crappy day. This is what happened to me.
And trust. Yeah.
And I think that we have to slow down long enough to listen to people, because there are a lot of hurting people out there, and you've got to say really and truly what's the most important, what's the most loving thing I can do for this person. Is it to listen to them, or is it to brush them off because I'm in a hurry? And if you ask yourself that question, what's the most loving thing, you may stop and spend an hour with them on the phone if you need to.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. When the Catholics, when they go in to do their confession and the priest is listening, were anybody ever a Catholic?
I was.
Okay. Aren't they doing the same thing? I mean, yes, they've got a person they're trusting over here, and they're telling him all the things they need to say.
He is a trained professional. He is trained to listen and to give that advice. And so I think there's a difference between calling somebody on the phone that's a trained listener versus a priest that this is part of his life. This is his life calling.
Would you go to the priest or the app?
Well, if I would go to someone that's going to listen to me that I believe would hear me out and give me godly counsel versus somebody I don't know where they're coming from and what kind of advice they're going to give me. I'm just going to go for a trained professional versus a trained listener.
And you know, Psalm says that. It says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly. And on this app, you're just scrolling down and looking at people's faces.
They're going to give you the first available one.
Exactly. And you know what? You just look at their pictures and think,
you're ninth on hold.
Right. Yeah. And they look as crazy as I do, so I think I'll just choose them. So
and they may tell you what you want to hear. Yeah, I think another important component of listening that was very difficult for my husband and I is we were learning how to communicate again, because that breaks down through the years. We've married 28 years, and you know, you can get into a place where you have a stalemate in your communication. So we were going over listening techniques, and one of the important things is taking your objective off the table. When you're listening to someone, try to say, I'm going to listen to their point of view, even if you don't agree with it. but try to hear them from where they're coming from, because we're not going to agree on everything.
I think that's key. You know, you were saying about, you know, knowing who to speak to. You know, I think you said a big number earlier, 10. I mean, you're blessed to find one person that you can really talk to.
But you
know.
can find them. You can absolutely find them, but you have to be proactive with it. I mean, it was really hard for me to find one or two, but I thought about it, and you'll find this crazy if you want to, but it was almost like I was interviewing them, because some people can't receive all your junk.
Well, that's a good point, Ann, because you should interview. You find out who's safe and who's not safe.
Absolutely.
And then when you find those safe people, then you stick with those safe people,
Right.
people that you know that aren't going to betray your trust, and people that are going to give you wise counsel. Not just a listener,
Right.
but is that listener going to lead me in a path that's good? That's the best path for me, for what I'm going through right now.
I can tell you, that is all well, but there are some times in life that
Come on, Jack.
bad things can happen.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you're sitting in a conference room with attorneys, and the first thing they tell you, Ann, with their finger in your face, is you talk to no one.
Wow.
You talk to one person, and you're going to send your son to prison for 30 years.
Oh,
It's at that
be
point,
devastating.
there are no safe people.
Right.
There's no one. But yes, oh yeah, there's someone. That's when I learned I could no longer talk to people, but there was still someone that I
right.
could talk to.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I learned to one-on-one with
There
him.
is a time, Jackie, there is a time for silence. There is a time that silence is golden. And so we just have to learn the difference between talking too much and not speaking up when you need to speak up, and finding that person that you need to speak to.
Well, you know, not just people. I mean, animals, lovers, we can talk to our dogs.
Oh, I do that all the time, man.
You know,
Woo.
listen,
Yeah.
they can't talk back, but I mean, sometimes
They
you just
love
need a
drama,
release.
and they're
you
not
know?
gonna spread it
They love you,
around,
they're gonna
they
agree
just
with
love
you.
it.
Just
That's
sometimes
right.
you just need someone to, you know,
That's
agree with
right.
you. I think even as children, I mean, didn't we talk to our dolls?
Of course we
You know, our
did.
toys, you know?
You know, you guys talk about talking to the Lord, and I think that obviously is huge. We've got to spend daily time talking to the Lord, but listening is a huge part. Sometimes we get into our prayer time, and we often forget to try and have that quiet time just to listen, because He will speak back in that still, quiet
Be
voice.
still.
Be patient too, because I think when we talk about listening, you know, and you have people literally listening, and it's like, God, I don't hear anything. I'm not getting an answer. So patience, it plays a part too.
And sometimes
you know.
I think that's why He speaks to us so much in the middle of the night, is to get our attention.
Every time He wakes me up at 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
Yeah,
exactly.
3
Yeah.
a.m.
He can get our
That's it.
attention then.
I was talking about safe people and finding safe people, and I advocate that so much in women's lives when I'm discipling, but we need to be safe people too. And there's so many in our churches, and so many of us at times we get busy and we're not safe, you know, or we're prone to gossip, or we're prone to hurt people. So we need
We'll
to do
be
that.
right back. Stay with us.